Welcome home. I'm Jaime Umphenour from Home Ec Express, and in today's video, we're going to learn all about knives. Not just how to use a knife, but how they're built and how to use them the right way. And that's probably one of the scariest things for people in the kitchen, is to try to use a really large knife. But actually, there's nothing to be scared of with your knives. So, when we are shopping for knives, there's a few things you need to consider. One is your budget, because there's a whole gamut of cutlery prices and ranges and quality out there. If you're just starting out in life, you probably are not going to spend $80 on a forged German stainless steel knife. You might go for a lower quality knife just for the time being, but as you progress in life, you probably are going to want better items in your kitchen, because the knife is really the workhorse in your kitchen. So the way that you can tell if a knife is well made is first the weight of the knife. German stainless steel is also one of the best metal compounds out there, so you want to make sure that you're looking at the labels and the country of origin for the steel so that you know you're getting a high quality item. So a knife is called forged if it's made by hand with fire. Okay, so forged is a higher quality. Otherwise, you can have a knife that is stamped by a machine. And we're looking for, in a high quality knife, what's called full tang construction. That means that the blade is actually running all the way through the length of the handle. And that's why there's actually some weight behind your knife. And if your knife is full tang and properly made, it just kind of balances right there in your hand. It makes your wrist motions more comfortable when you're cutting properly. So we have the blade of the knife down here. This part up above is called the spine of the knife. Of course, this is the handle. And then this part here, we call it the neck. But you see that little curve right here? That's called the bolster. And that's really important because that rolls into how to properly hold a knife, which we'll get to in just a moment. We have different types of knives out there in the cutlery world, and they all have specific jobs. If you were going to pick one or two knives for your kitchen, you want to have a bigger knife, like a chef's knife, or something, a second choice would be like your utility knife. It's generally a 5-inch blade. We have different types of knives though available out there. This style is called chef's knife. It's a Western style knife design. 7 to 8-inch blade is what you're looking for, and it's a pretty straightforward traditional type of knife for the kitchen. Now, this one is always a little bit fun. This is called a Santoku knife. The purpose of this is exactly the same as your chef's knife, but and it's slicing and dicing and mincing. But what they've done with this, it's an Eastern style. It comes from Japan, the styling of the knife. And a Santoku is known for having these little divots that run across the blade. On high quality knives, it'll be on both sides, lefty, righty friendly. And what it does is it creates a little air pocket between the food and the knife to allow the food to fall off of the blade easier and faster, rather than with a traditional chef's knife where you might have to kind of push it off on the side of the cutting board or whatnot with your finger. So a Santoku or a chef's knife is obviously going to be your first choice, and then you have your utility knife. After that, if you love bread as much as I do, which I probably shouldn't love bread that much, but you have to have a bread knife. And a bread knife is serrated. It grabs and kind of saws into the loaf of bread. If you're using a traditional straight blade knife, you will be so bummed because you will fight the bread and you kind of have to stab at it. Not fun, not pretty. So definitely invest in a bread knife if you love bread like I do. Now, if you love meat, you probably might want to purchase a boning knife. Now, a boning knife is really thin, and it also is flexible. So that's designed for kind of maneuvering around the muscle tissue and the bone, and also for getting the silver skin off of pork loins and whatnot. Now, this little guy looks like a utility knife. It's very similar in size, but you can see it has the teeth like a bread knife, but this is actually called a tomato knife. It is tomato season right now while we're filming this, and the tomatoes are ripening very fast. This will allow you to just slide on through a tomato without making a giant mess all over the kitchen, as if it would if you were using a straight blade knife. And one other really practical knife, this is a paring knife. It's compact, about a 3 to a 3.5 inch blade. This type of knife is used for just literally peeling an apple, cutting up a lemon really quick to throw in your water. Nothing fancy like that. You don't want to dice an onion with a paring knife. You will be incredibly frustrated. We want to make sure that life in the kitchen is easy and joyful. That's the whole point behind all of this, is to make it easy and joyful. So once you have your knives, you need a surface to cut on. Now, if you want to ever make a home ec teacher or a cooking teacher squeal, please don't cut on your countertop, on your granite, on your tile, or on your plate with your good knives. You will be sadly disappointed with the results, and you'll ruin your knife and shorten its life. So you need to invest in cutting boards. And there's several different options out there as you grow in your cooking skills and in your place in life, moving from a dorm room to an apartment. You might need a couple types of cutting boards depending on what you like to do in the kitchen. So what I have here, first of all, is a beautiful bamboo cutting board. Bamboo is a great natural material to use in the kitchen. It's the least porous of the natural materials out there, and it's least likely to dull your knife when you're cutting. The porousness is very important to consider because wood or natural materials can always absorb juices from the food. Therefore, you can never cut raw meat on a wood or natural material cutting board because of bacterial issues. So then comes in a man-made type of cutting board. This here is just a nice little polypropylene cutting board. Polypropylene cutting boards are great. They can be bleached, they can go in the dishwasher, but also they give a little bit every time your knife strikes, and that will help lengthen the life of your cutlery. Now, I get a lot of questions about cutting mats. Cutting mats are great, cutting mats are convenient. However, they're not designed to be a substitute for your cutting board. Now, if you want to throw a cutting mat down on the counter and make a quick cheese sandwich, that's okay, but they're not a replacement for a cutting board when doing chopping and dicing and slicing. The purpose behind this is actually to provide yourself with a second surface, especially if you're working with maybe fresh vegetables and raw meat. And so you can cut one of those ingredients on the mat, move it aside, and then have a clean surface underneath. Very convenient and very sanitary. And most of the time these can go in the dishwasher, but they do tend to curl and do that type of thing as time goes on. Totally okay, totally expected. So make sure you invest in a really convenient type of cutting board that's also safe and stable on your countertop. Now, speaking of safety, what to do when you're cutting. Okay, so we have our knife. The proper way to hold a large knife is to do the pinch. You pinch the top of the neck and you wrap your fingers at the bolster around the blade. So we call this the pinch. That is a safe way to hold your knife. Now, when you're using smaller knives, you're not necessarily going to hold the top of the neck here. You can hold it further back. But when you're working and doing all the slicing and chopping, you need to have it correct so that you're efficient and also you don't exhaust your wrist muscle. Now, your other hand is your helper hand. Curl those fingers back, you guys, because as you get closer, you have protection. The worst thing you can do is have those fingertips facing out. So just make a habit of curling fingertips and then you're safe. Now, what about if you accidentally drop your knife? And Lord knows it's happened to everybody, and our natural tendency is to reach out and try to grab it, but that is very dangerous. So what you want to do is allow it to fall, and if it's headed towards the floor, just step back, move your feet, and let it fall, and then pick it up and wash the knife. So we want to make sure we're practical, but also safe in the kitchen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, cutting lesson number 1. The onion. So So with an onion, you have two different sides, and it's actually important to know which side is cut off so that we can take off the first layer of the onion. This side here is the side where if it were to flour, the flour would come out. This side here was kind of dry with the little growth. That's actually the root of the onion. We want to leave that intact while we're working with our onion. So first thing we're going to do, pinch our knife, and we're going to just slice right into the top and remove the skin of the onion. That's everybody's most favorite part of onions. And actually, we're going to cut this in half, and this will make it easier to take the skin off. So we're going to take our first layer, just like that. Now it's starting to smell wonderful. If my daughter were to walk in right now, she'd squeal because she is not an onion fan, but I love them. So, trash can is right over here, or compost if you have your compost at home. But we're going to take this little layer off, just like that. Kind of clean up my little mess here. All right, onion is great for practicing because there's different ways that we can cut our onion. Now, if we just want to slice it, so we have the half moon shape, we want to have our onion lined up with the knife. We're going to curl our fingers back here, and I want you to pay attention to the tip of your knife. It doesn't really lift off the cutting board. The back side and your wrist is doing much of the work. So, nice, even motions, just like that. We get down to our little root here, and now we have nice, even slices of onion. And of course my eyes want to burn because this is a nice fresh onion. Now if we want to dice it for a recipe, the easiest trick that you can do with a half of an onion is to take your knife parallel to the cutting board, put your palm on top, and we're just going to slice almost through the onion, but not all the way. We want to leave that little root intact. So you can see right there, I've gone in half on the horizontal. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take the tip of our knife and just make slits into the knife, just like that. Curl your fingers, lift up the back side of your knife. And now, take your time. Don't feel like you have to be a Ginsu chef because it looks really cool on TV, but those people have years of practice where they're like, yeah. We're not going to do that. But now we have nice, even diced onion to go right into your recipe or for a taco bar. Super easy. You can do this, but practice, and you will be able to master this in no time. All right, so we're going to practice on a couple different vegetables. If you have extra zucchini is awesome for practicing knife skills. First thing we're going to do is practice on a carrot. And carrots are a little difficult sometimes because they're not very even as far as laying on the counter. So you have different ways that you can handle a vegetable that might not be the most cooperative. So we're going to take our ends off, and then we're going to slice this long ways, just like that. So there we have our flat friends here. And then we just line up our knife, rocking motion, and we want to have nice, even cuts. Now, one of the things about practicing our cutting and making sure that it's even is so that when you're cooking, everything cooks at a nice, even rate, and you don't have some raw food and then some overcooked food because they weren't even. So that's easy slicing of awkward vegetables. And then of course we have my cute little cucumber here. If you want to just have little rings of cucumber for your salad, line your knife up, hold it nice and firm. And again, don't feel like you have to be like the Ginsu chef. You just want to take your time and keep practicing so you get your nice, even little slices. And that's it. It's so easy. Anybody can do this when they give themselves the time to learn and practice. So a couple things before we go today. One is when you have a really awesome knife, you want to make sure that you maintain the blade. And there's a lot of different ways that we see on television mostly how people take care of their blades. And there's a little confusion. One method that is done is called sharpening. And to be honest with you, I have never in my home kitchen had a knife sharpened because I do what's called honing. And honing is regular maintenance of the blade. Now, if you watch Food Network and things like that, you'll see the chefs come out with a steel rod and they go, yeah, 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 with the knife. Now, knowing myself, if I was honing a knife that way, I would literally probably cut up my arms and we'd have a big issue in the kitchen. But what that is doing is it's maintaining the edge of the blade. And you can do this on any straight blade knife, not your serrated knives. But as we use our knives and they get kind of banged around and whatnot, you develop little microscopic pits in your knife blade. And this just helps keep it smooth, keep it straight, keep it aligned and happy, because a happy knife is a well-cutting, awesome, productive knife. And so I don't do the steel for my honing. I actually have a little countertop knife honer. It uses little stones in there, and I just run it right through just like that, and it keeps my blade nice and happy. So what sharpening is you will send your knife out to the knife sharpener. So whoever does the shears for the person that cuts your hair, sometimes even the lawnmower blade sharpening people can sharpen your knives. And so that is once they're past the point of no return and they're actually grinding the knife blade down and making it brand new again. And so as long as you're maintaining your knife or you're not working in a commercial setting, your knives will be happy for many, 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 many years. And so just make sure you take care of them. And the final step in taking care of your knives is how we clean them. Now, any of your cutlery, so we're not talking about our friend, the butter knife. Butter knives go in the dishwasher. Those are your table knives for dinner. We're talking about our cutlery. They should always be hand washed, dried, and put away immediately. You don't ever put your good knives in the dishwasher. The dishwasher is a very abrasive environment and it will actually ding and pit your knives really bad. And if you have hard water, it'll probably leave all kinds of mineral deposits on the blade. Hand wash, dry, put away, done. Easy enough. So if you enjoyed today's video and if you have friends and family that can benefit from knowledge on how to use their knives properly, feel free to share this with your friends and family. Also, stop by our website, homeecexpress.com, or follow us on Pinterest, Facebook, and Instagram. Till next time.